Hello, Katie. It has been 22 very long days since I've seen you, and I want to tell you about how my trip has been going. So 22 days ago, I left our apartment and I went downstairs, and the first thing I saw when I left was Squeaker Snacks, which is really funny because you since made a video about the Squeaker Snacks, and everybody's gonna know what that means now. So I grabbed the Squeaker Snacks and I walked over to Sugamo and I got my last bowl of aburi samendon, and I figured that would be a very, very good last meal in Japan because it's one of my favorite things. And it was lunchtime and it was a good price. After that, I rode the train over to the airport, Narita, which is, you know, Narita, but the seats were not super, super hot, so it was dealable. And I had to travel late alone, and there still were no bears even though you weren't there. At the airport, I got to get a little bit of video editing done while I was waiting for my plane, and the most exciting thing of the day, I got the last street pass on my 3DS to get every prefecture from Japan. I was super stoked. Taking off on an airplane without you is a bit of a bummer. There's nobody's hand to hold. Like, you know, when you take off on a plane, you want to hold somebody's hand, and same when you land, but you weren't there, so I had Dr. Oink, I held Dr. Oink's hand, and I made it through it. On the plane, though, I got lucky, and the movie system was amazing. And I had the opportunity to watch a Disney movie called Bears, which honestly wasn't very good, but it had a lot of bears and that was pretty awesome. Unfortunately, the food on the plane was pretty subpar. I was flying an American airline, and not American Airlines, but an American-owned airline, and it's not the same as a Japanese-owned airline. Like, they don't seem to care so much about their food. So my flight was from Narita all the way to Atlanta, where I would have a transfer. And it was strange because I took off at like 4:30 in the afternoon on a Thursday, and then I landed at 3:30 in the afternoon on a Thursday. So the flight, like, I landed an hour before I took off, which is like, that's so strange every time something like that happens. And I guess when I go back, it'll be something similar, just in the reverse direction. But yeah, I was like, I saw the clock and I was like, wait, what, really? Once in Atlanta, there was a Chipotle in the airport that I managed to walk past without getting a burrito at. So that's like my strength right there, was right there. That took a lot of willpower. My layover in Atlanta was to wait for a plane to fly to Roanoke, which is in like southwestern Virginia, of course. And I flew into Roanoke, and it's a tiny little airport. And when I walked out of the airport, there's just the beautiful Virginia hills, and it was really nice to see those again. Then Will picked me up, and the first thing we did is we drove to a sandwich shop and got a Reuben. And I ate this delicious Reuben, and like the flavors of the Reuben are something that, like, we don't have that in Japan. That mixture of sauerkraut and the meat and the peppered meat or whatever it is, and oh my god, it was so good. And it was just like hitting taste buds in my mouth that I haven't had like stimulated in so long. It was just incredibly delicious. Plus, it's nice to have a good meal after a long flight, so probably a double whammy, but the sandwich was incredible. And for dinner, we stopped by a supermarket and I got turkey dogs, hot dog buns, and applesauce. And you can imagine where that went. First thing in the morning, I found the chatty cat, and the chatty cat chatted at me. Of course, it's not hard to find because that chatty cat's real chatty. And then I found our pig light. That was quite a delight. Then Will and we headed out to his office in Blacksburg, and on the way there, he introduced me to something called Taco Bell breakfast. So apparently Taco Bell has breakfast now, and I'm sure that's not news to anybody but Katie. And it was Taco Bell. It was all right. It wasn't amazing, but it was like cheap, and it was breakfast at Taco Bell. Very, very strange. It's a new world we're living in here. I don't know how to cope with this. But then for lunch, I burritoed again, and I had Chipotle finally. So it took like less than 24 hours. I found a Chipotle and I had a Chipotle, and it was amazing. It's so big though. I'm not used to these huge portions, and it was just like I was going to explode eating this burrito, but like absolutely worth it. At some point later that day, we also had frozen yogurt, and I got mochi on it, and that was a thing I didn't expect to find, but it was awesome. And frozen yogurt, I just like frozen yogurt. It's sour, you know? It's good. The coolest thing I think we did while I was in Southwest Virginia, though, was there's this tiny little county out there called Floyd County where there's like one stoplight in the whole county, and it's like the people there wear overalls, you know what I mean? Like that's the place, that's what Floyd County is. So on Friday nights, they had like a bluegrass jamboree. And it's like in this little country store, and we went to this bluegrass jamboree, and there were like all these people dancing and bluegrass music, and the vibe was really cool. Like it wasn't touristy and stuff or anything. It was just like, this is what people go and they meet and they do their bluegrass jamboree, and it was just really authentic and really cool, and I'm super happy I got to see that. And I really wish that you had been there, because it was something that I think you would have just thought was really awesome. And I might have convinced you to dance. I mean, not with me, just you, because there's no way I would dance. That's super scary. So I realize most people watching this probably have no idea, like, why am I in America and Katie is not in America? And the main reason is that our friends that live in Southwest Virginia, they have been holding on to all of our earthly American possessions for like 5 years now. And it's all stuff that we had given them 5 years ago, anticipating that we were just gonna leave it there for 1 year. And then 1 year turned into 5 years and we're just not back yet. So like, it's not an incredibly huge pile of stuff, but it could definitely be cut back on. So my goal was to eliminate as much of that as possible, and then I was going to take it from their house to Katie's dad's house. And the reason I'm doing that is because our friends, who are amazing and completely still willing to hold on to our stuff for us, unfortunately can't, because they're moving to California. So in California, there's, you know, smaller houses and no basements. So I spent a couple days at their beautiful country house, and I was in the basement on Skype with Katie, and I was like throwing things away and taking things to Goodwill, and we had an acoustic guitar that we didn't need anymore, and we didn't know what to do with it. So we were driving down the road and there were some hippies playing music, so I got out of the car and I was like, hey hippies, do you want a guitar? And I got a hippie hug out of it, and it was really cool. And yeah, I condensed everything we had down to a pretty small pile, and I put it into a truck. And I drove to Fredericksburg in Virginia, which is about 3.5 hours or so from where our friends in Blacksburg or Southwest Virginia live. And on the way there, I drove, you know, this amazing scenery with all the beautiful Virginia hills, and there were some like really wicked heavy rainstorms that I drove through. And I don't know, it was a pleasant drive, and it's the first time I've driven a car, and I don't know, it's been a long time, like 3 years or something. I mean, I've rode motorbikes and stuff in Vietnam, Myanmar, etc., but to drive a car, it's been a really long time, so that was kind of fun. Once I was in Fredericksburg, I drove past our old house and took a look at it, and it looks really nice, and whoever lives there is doing great things, so that's really cool to see. And then I headed to your dad's house, and ended up going out to dinner with your dad and had a really good time, and it was great to see him. And of course he let me stay there for a few days while I got everything arranged and everything. So I took all of our stuff, and the very little amount of stuff that's left, it's like 4 boxes, and I put it in his closet. And while I was in Fredericksburg, I had an opportunity to go and have some amazing Southern barbecue, and with some amazing company. I got to see Thomas for a barbecue lunch. And then I also met a bunch of friends at an Italian restaurant, and it was one of those times where I really wish you had been here, because it would have been amazing fun with you. Not that it was bad without you, but it just would have been that, you know, it would have kicked it up a Katie bit, you know? So we had a big meal, and I gave them a bunch of Japanese snacks, and like they all tried the weird Japanese snacks and like the fish flavored Cheetos and like all of that stuff. And then we went to Carl's afterwards. Only a few of us made it there, and had ice cream at Carl's. And Carl's is like famous for like Fredericksburg ice cream. It's like the place to go. Like there's a line and everything usually, and had some Carl's. And the next day I got up, and we wanted to get out of Fredericksburg and head back to Southwest Virginia early, but we also wanted to have really good Chinese food. So we waited around until Chang's opened for lunch, and we went to Chang's. And for anybody that doesn't know, Chang's is a Chinese restaurant in Fredericksburg that's actually called, what's the name? Fortune Gourmet, I think is the name. And I used to work there actually, and it has like the best Chinese buffet in the world, as far as I'm concerned, which is absolutely inaccurate, because I'm sure there's much better food, but as far as I'm concerned, it is the best Chinese food I've ever had. But it's like, it's American Chinese food, it's not real Chinese food, so it's like, you know, General Tso's and stuff. But oh my God, I'm just like addicted to it, and all of our friends are kind of addicted to it. So anyway, yeah, Katie, I went to Chang's, and I ate way too much food at Chang's. And after the Chinese food, Will and I headed back to Blacksburg. And to fill people in even more, the other part of the reason that I'm in the States is to drive with Will from Blacksburg, Virginia, all the way to the Bay Area where he's going to be moving. And it's just gonna be him and I, and his wife and his son are going to be staying behind while his son finishes school. And it's gonna give Will an opportunity to find a place to live, hopefully in the Bay Area before they come out. So we decided on a route, well, Will kind of decided on a route. I was like, I'll go anywhere. So Will decided on a route that would take us kind of on the southern part of the United States. And the first place that we hit on the way out was Memphis. And the reason we hit Memphis was because Will had grown up there and he knew a place where to get some pretty amazing barbecue. And we stopped and we had some pretty amazing barbecue. And we pushed on from there. And that night, if I recall, we ended up in a hotel, but I don't even remember what state we were in when we stayed in that hotel. And it was that uneventful. So I guess we got up the next morning and we drove like through Oklahoma. And when we were driving through Oklahoma, there were these huge storms. And we looked at weather.com and we were like, okay, what's going on? And it was like the whole state was red and it was like tornado warning, tornado warning. And we had planned to camp in the area where all the tornado warnings were. So we kind of decided not to camp that night and went all the way into Amarillo, I think, Texas. And we stayed in a hotel in Amarillo, Texas instead of camping that night, which, I mean, it would have been cool to camp, but also tornadoes. At some point the next day, I realized that we were in the southwest of the United States, and there's something really cool out there that I wanted to see and never had had the chance to see before. So we went and we did this. So we've been driving 2.5 days, and we are in New Mexico, just outside of Albuquerque, and we found something that's pretty cool that people I don't think know exist. And the reason I know it exists is because my 4th grade teacher, who I'm friends with on Facebook, who is like an amazingly cool dude, like the reason I think I travel is because of hearing stories this guy told me when I was in 4th grade. Like, that dude now is retired, and he drives around the Southwest, and he finds arrows. And these giant arrows in the desert. And they're these big concrete things. And the reason they're here is because in the 1920s, the US Postal Service was like, okay, we have ponies, but now ponies aren't fast enough. So what we need is airplanes. But then they were like, airplanes don't have radars. So how are we gonna get like across the country without landmarks? Because I mean, look, there's nothing here. Like, you need something to help you point in the way. So they built these giant concrete arrows every 10 miles out in the desert, and the pilots literally like looked over the side of the plane and found arrows, and then they kept flying in the direction the arrow pointed. So like back in the day, this would have had a big like steel tower and a generator, I guess, that somebody filled with fuel at some point, and a light on top of the tower to help them guide them. I guess even at nighttime would help, or just easier to see even in the daytime probably, because otherwise how would you spot the arrow if you were off course a little bit? Anyway, I have a lot of questions about this. So yeah, during the 1920s, they built this like network of arrows that goes all over the United States, and like from New York to like San Francisco, and then they came down to the Southwest and stuff, so that they had to connect into like San Antonio or whatever, I guess, go into like Texas and stuff. You could do that. So now these arrows still exist, and people like are documenting where they are. So you can look on Google and be like, where's the nearest arrow? And then we found the nearest arrow, and it's right off I-40, which we're driving down. So we just like walked through some bush and avoided some scorpions and climbed through a fence and stuff. And now we're at this arrow. And I mean, like, look, it's an arrow, like literally, like go that way to somewhere. I'm not quite sure where. And you can see, like, when I said there was a tower, like with these 4 pillars that would have come up, I guess, and sat on top of this giant thing. And then you would have had a pillar that, like, then there's an arrow that goes a place. And, like, there's nothing else out here. It's empty. Like, there is nothing here. But it's really beautiful. Like, the mountains are kind of blue, and you can see, like, the curvature of the earth. It does not look like Tokyo, not even close. After exploring the arrows and picking all of the burrs out of the bottom of my sandals, which by the way were long enough to actually poke into my feet, which kind of sucked, should have had better footwear, we headed towards the Grand Canyon with the intention of camping outside of the Grand Canyon, so in the morning we could get up and go like into the canyon and see things. So we drove all the way up to right where there's a campgrounds at the Grand Canyon, and there was a sign that was like campgrounds are full. And then it said, But if you want to camp for free, drive 10 minutes up this road and then you can just camp there. So that's what we did. And we found a cool little place and we set up camp and we drank moonshine and talked to this Norwegian guy and looked at the amazing stars and had a really, really cool night. Unfortunately, the next day at the Grand Canyon, it was really, really windy and really, really rainy when we first got there. So we ended up taking this little tram, this bus that they have, and went to a couple places. And the first place we got off was like this peninsula that sticks out like over the canyon basically. And I walked out there and I made this video of the wind and rain. And I don't think it captures exactly how windy or rainy it was. It's windy and raining and we're Grand Canyoning. It's amazing though. But after a while it cleared up and we got some pretty good views of the canyon and it was really pretty, and Will had never seen it before and it like blew his mind. And I mean, that's what the Grand Canyon does. It blows your mind. It's amazing. From the Grand Canyon, Will wanted to go down to Phoenix, which is not in the direction at all of from the Grand Canyon to to the Bay Area. But he wanted to go down there because there's a pizza place called Pizza Bianco, I think. I'm sorry if I said that wrong. And it's this famous pizza place that he had heard about many, many times. So we got to drive down from the Grand Canyon into Phoenix in Arizona. And for me, the cool part was seeing the landscape change and the giant cactuses. Like, I had no idea how big they were. Like, I mean, you know, cactuses are kind of big, but like, these things are massive, and it was really cool seeing these huge fields of these cactuses and just going through the deserts and stuff. And I mean, I was seeing landscape I've never seen before. So that was really, really cool. And we found our way to the pizza place, and it was not worth driving to Phoenix for. I think we both agree on that. But it was good. It was just not, it did not like blow us away. It was just like, you know, I mean, good pizza is good and bad pizza is good. And this was like, it was great pizza, but it wasn't excellent pizza. But I mean, it was, for me, it was worth going down there, and it was worth like the cactuses. That was to me the highlight of like Arizona, seeing that landscape. It's so pretty. And that night we stayed in a hotel in Phoenix, and they had a hot tub, and I hit the hot tub, and we did some laundry, and there's really not much else going on there for us. I'm sure there's a lot of stuff in Phoenix, but we didn't have time to like explore it any further. In the morning when we left Phoenix, our goal was to go from Phoenix to the Hoover Dam to Vegas, and we would be staying in Vegas. And we had booked a room at the Luxor in Vegas, and it was like, we searched like cheap hotel rooms in Vegas, and it was one of them that came up, it was like $60 or something. I don't remember, it was really cheap. And more about the room later. So we drove back up out of the Phoenix area, and we took a different road, and it had different landscape, and it was just as beautiful as the first road we had come down from the Grand Canyon. And we ended up at the Hoover Dam, and we went on the little tour. And I've been to the Hoover Dam before, but I've never on the little tour. And the little tour was really cool. They take you inside the dam, and you can see like the power station and like how they make energy, and like the guy tells you all those crazy facts about it. And like, you ask if it's a god dam, and he just gets upset. And then after we went to the Hoover Dam, we headed to Vegas, and we got into Vegas before it was dark, but not too far before it was dark. And we checked into the Luxor, and it was a room that was like ridiculous. It was a corner room in this pyramid that is bigger than real pyramids. And like, there was a hot tub and 2 rooms and a lot of space, and it was like luxury. And I was like, why was this one of the cheapest rooms we could find? You know, like what happened here? So it was really cool. We were a little paranoid we were gonna get charged extra for it for something, but like, we didn't. And while we were in Luxor, Will did some gambling, like really like $20 or something, like not a whole lot. And then we walked down the strip from the Luxor to the Bellagio and watched the amazing fountain. And like, I don't know, there's just something really picturesque about this fountain. Even though it's really touristy and everything, like whatever, it's a really cool water fountain. For dinner in Las Vegas, we went back to the Yoshinoya that you and I had eaten out years ago, and our review of it before was pretty much the same. It's not exactly the same, it's okay, and there's no raw egg. Like, I guess they can't do that in the United States, and the portions are so big, but it was worth having again. The same thing that the Grand Canyon did to Will, like the Las Vegas blew his mind. It's so big and so weird, and when you've never seen it before, it's just like, what is happening here? It's like, it's like another planet or something. So we stayed in the Luxor for the night, and then in the morning we got up, and we got up pretty early because we were gonna have to drive all the way from Las Vegas to the Bay Area, and we didn't want to take the boring route like up I-5 in California. We wanted to go over the mountains where it would be pretty. So we went through Nevada, and oh my God, there's nothing in Nevada. You leave Vegas and it's just like every 200 miles there's a brothel, and like that's it. So like you would see signs, it's like next gas 100 miles, next gas 120 miles. And at one point we saw a sign that said McDonald's just ahead. And we drove 150 miles before we got to the McDonald's. And we were just like, that's just ahead, really? Like, really, really weird. And I mean, that's kind of boring driving, but you know, it is what it is. But we had the opportunity to stop in this little town and get lunch at this, like, it's like a mobile home this lady has, and she sells like barbecue out of the mobile home and sandwiches and stuff. So we got a couple of sandwiches, and they were really, really good. And we talked to the lady about getting over the pass. You have to go over a mountain range to get from Nevada to California, and you can see there's snow on these mountains, and the car we're in is like a rear wheel drive 5 Series BMW with like low profile tires, and we were like, this car does not do snow. So we asked the lady, we're like, can we get over the pass? And she was like, hey, it'll be fine, no problem. So we were like, okay, like awesome. And so we made it to get to where we were gonna turn off to go over the pass, and it was closed due to snow. Like, you couldn't put chains on, you couldn't take a truck, like it was closed. So we ended up on another route that added like another hour and a half or something to the whole trip for that day. So it ended up making a really long day, but we drove over some very beautiful roads and saw some really beautiful mountains. And I didn't realize this, but Will had mentioned to me, he was like, this is the first time I've seen snow-capped mountains. And I was like, oh wow, like I didn't realize that that's a thing he hadn't seen. So he saw these amazing roads and got to drive over them and everything. Once we got into the Bay Area, things slowed down a bit for me, and I had a lot of time to go to Will's office with him, and like the people in his office are super, super nice, and they gave me a desk, and I think I was there for 3 or 4 days, and I had an opportunity to edit a lot of video and get a lot of stuff caught up on the internet and like go through emails and all that stuff. So it was really awesome, and the people he works with are really cool. And we did a few things. He spent some time looking at houses, and we went and looked at some houses, and we ended up out in Pleasanton at one point because he's thinking about living out there. And we had the chance to drive past a house that I lived at when I was a kid in Pleasanton. It looks about the same. I guess they might have changed the color, but I don't remember. Maybe it was blue before, or gray, or I can't remember. So, but the neighborhood is really cool, and it seems a bit like a weird coincidence that Will might end up living in Pleasanton, and it happens to just be a place that I lived as a child, and we're friends now from meeting in Virginia. All that's very weird. The universe is a strange place. Other than that, while we were in the Bay Area, went to a couple of parties that his coworkers had. Went to a board game card party where I had no idea what I was doing, but it was a lot of fun to meet these people. But these people are like hardcore board game people, and like I'm like, maybe I can play checkers, you know, but they're like playing like real board games and like strategy and stuff. But it was cool to see that world. And also went to a barbecue with another one of his friends, and that was really cool. And he had made all of this crab, and like, oh my God, it was so delicious. It was really nice. And one day, Will and I together, we ended up actually taking an Uber. If you don't know what an Uber is, you should look it up. It's really cool. It's like a crowdsourced taxi. So we took this Uber and we went into San Francisco from Oakland, where we were staying, and he took us to Fisherman's Wharf, where, you know, touristy stuff, and we got some food to eat. I got like this crab cake thing, and Will got a clam chowder bowl, like bread bowl thing, which is like the tourist stuff to do. And we ended up taking a boat cruise for like, I don't know, it was like 15 bucks a piece or something, and the boat cruise took us out underneath the Golden Gate Bridge, and it was really foggy and cool looking, the way that the bridge was like coming out of the clouds and stuff, and then took us and cruised us around Alcatraz and went back, and I think it was like an hour or something, and it was really fun. And when we were finished with that, we took another Uber to the Mission District, which is apparently a place where you can go to get burritos in San Francisco, and I had a burrito that like changed my religion. Like it was so good. It was so incredibly good. Real talk, this is the best burrito I've ever eaten. It's unbelievable. After a few days in the Bay Area, I flew up to Bend in Central Oregon, and I am now staying with my parents and my grandmother, and just kind of unwinding from the last 3 weeks of hecticness that's been going on. And just, you know, spending time with family. And we actually went up to Crater Lake yesterday, and like, it's beautiful up there, and it's 60 degrees, but there's still some snow up there, but not nearly as snowy as when you and I went. Now I'm sitting in this gorgeous little park in Bend, and I am right by this little river, and it's very nice. And this is something that I really wanted to share. This grass. This is not a thing that we do in Tokyo, like not nice grass like this. It feels so thick and beautiful, and it's incredible. And this river is really nice, and I don't know what I'm gonna do for the next few days. I've got a couple of days I'm gonna spend time with my family, and then I don't know. I'm shooting this on Friday morning, so I guess on Monday afternoon I get on a plane to fly back, and I get to see you finally in Tokyo. So it still feels like it's a long way away, but this whole 3 weeks just went poof. So I think that the next few days will probably do the same. I miss you.
And just acting natural.
That was totally natural. That's how he always walks.
Hey everyone, we have a Patreon page and we'd really like for you to check it out. It'll allow you to contribute to us and make these crazy adventures we've been going on continue and get even better. So we'd really love for you to follow the link and learn more about Patreon and us. Go for it. Let's adventure.